Bacca he's a bit of a card. He loved being the police dog. At home he was very quiet, very amicable with the family, but as soon as he saw me in the police uniform he changed. He would be pacing in the garden, wanting to get to work, and worked fantastically throughout his career for West Mercia. So I've been a dog handler for 17 years. Bacca was my fourth police dog, and I was paired with him in mid-June 2012.
So the dog section is sort of very multi-layered in as much as it's got multiple roles, very much a supportive one to frontline policing. It can be as varied as looking for vulnerable adults, missing people, all the way through to the more aggressive sort of public order incidents. So they are very much supporting frontline staff, and as a frontline officer we rely heavily upon the dogs and the dog handlers.
On the night of the incident, we were on normal patrol in the county of Herefordshire. I was just coming back into the city of Hereford to go looking for a missing person. This call came in roughly 3:15 in the morning. The call was that a male was outside a newsagent's in Bromyard, smashing the windows, trying to gain entry to the property. The other officers arrived just literally 30 seconds before me. There'd been no mention of a knife, but as soon as they arrived, the male threatened the officers with a large boning knife. I got out of the car and I saw the officers were further up the road. It struck me as being unusual because they weren't saying anything, they weren't shouting at me, they weren't shouting at anybody. Police, when they come in contact with somebody in that situation, there's a lot of shouting and swearing towards the police officers. He was totally quiet. So I walked back to get the dog out straight away because obviously there'd been a mention of a knife. Shouted at him to put the knife down a couple of times, to which he took the knife to his side of his face and slashed his face open. I didn't know what to do then, to be truthful. I was quite surprised. Then training took over and I thought, I need to send the dog because I think this gentleman's going to commit suicide in front of us or potentially harm me or a member of the public. I released Bacca. Bacca went forward, bit the male on the leg. The male then slashed his own face another time, but then started to slash at Bacca's head and sides. In total, we counted roughly 8 slashes throughout the incident. At that point, I thought, I need to do something because I think the dog is going to be seriously injured. So I moved forward to get hands-on with the gentleman. He backs off into an alleyway, which is quite narrow. He then turns to run, but as he's about to turn, one of the other officers appeared on my shoulder and sprayed him with parva spray to no effect whatsoever. As Bacca is going into engage with him, the male slashes down on Bacca's head. I see Bacca sort of stutter and he then run past the male and stand behind him, sort of silhouetted in the darkness. This straight away I knew was not Bacca. Bacca's never failed on a criminal work and I expected he would have gone straight in to engage with the male. So my assumption was Bacca is now seriously injured and is going to keel over potentially and die in front of me. I then, because I'm now in the position where there's no fight or flight, this is fight and fight, because I'm thinking, we're in serious situation here. So I pull my parva out, I spray the gent, once again, no effect on him whatsoever. So I just think one more time, I look at Bacca and I say, Bacca, hold him. And God bless him, he came flying back down the road and engage with the male on the arm. Eventually I get Bacca off the male because he's on the floor. And literally the second that I've got Bacca off the male, he's up and running. And I just stood there and I was thinking, you can't be doing that. I send Bacca again. We both get hold of the male at the same time. Bacca engages on his right arm, I get hold of the left arm. We go to the floor. There's a bit more of a fight on the floor. And eventually the other officers, I tell them to come forward and they handcuff the male eventually. At this point, My thoughts are totally with Bacca because I know he's been stabbed. I don't know how seriously he has been. I go to him, I check him out, and I see he's got cuts down the side of his head. And at that point, I then realise that I've been stabbed as well. I don't know, to this day, I still don't know when I got stabbed during the incident, but the gent had stabbed me through the right hand. I look at Bacca and I can see here, there's blood everywhere. He's pouring out quite a considerable amount of blood because there's blood all over the van. So eventually I make the decision that one of the other officers there will drive me to the vets here in Hereford, and then he can take me to A&E afterwards. A couple of hours later, I'm reunited with Bacca after he's been brought out of surgery. I thought he was going to, be seriously injured, if not die from his wounds. It took us probably 2 to 3 weeks before we went back to operational policing. We had to go back and test Bacca to ensure that he was okay to carry on, because obviously he couldn't converse with us whether or not he wanted to do the job any longer. But he flew through it. There was no issue for him whatsoever. I, on the other hand, I went back to work too quick. I was stupid and thinking that it didn't affect me as it did, but it did. So we had to have some more time off while I got my head straight and was able to go back to work a few weeks later after that. You don't want anybody to hurt your dog. To see him go in like he did after being injured, just for me, shows how great a police dog he was. I'm just in total awe of him, the way that he went back in to do the job, even though he'd been stabbed. He knew he'd been stabbed, but he still went back in because he was there to save me.
I feel really, really proud and really honoured on behalf of Mike and Bacca that he's receiving the PDSA gold medal. The fact that he's been recognised with such a prestigious award is fantastic.
It's a great acclaim for him, for me and for the force, and he rightly deserves it, because I do not believe that I would be here today if it wasn't for Bacca on that night. I could have easily been killed that night because the gent was definitely hell-bent on seriously injuring me or others. So all that can be done for Bacca and other dogs like him, I think, is quite rightly done, and I am immensely proud of him.